really good, but it wasn't 5 stars for me, and let me tell you why. We'll go ahead and start with a very brief overview of the story, quick synopsis, completely spoiler-free, as well as a spoiler-free review, and then we'll kind of get into more spoilery subjects. This came out at the end of 2023, the year of Sanderson. It was the final of the Secret Project number 4. I finally got around to reading it, and I'm so excited that I finally did. I was putting it off for quite some time because I heard some mixed reviews on it, but this was so good, but it wasn't perfect. Sanderson very rarely disappoints, and this book is actually for us. These are for his fans. He wrote 2 of the secret projects for his wife, Emily, and that's going to be Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, as well as Tress and the Emerald Sea. At least for Tress, I do know that she thought it was so good that it deserved a bigger audience, and she encouraged Brandon to go ahead and publish it, so that way other readers had access to the amazing story that is Tress and the Emerald Sea. It is amazing, but that's for a different video. In case you've never heard of this secret project, this is the Sunlit Man, and it follows our main character, Nomad. He is constantly outrunning something, actually several things. This book gave me so much anxiety because it is just problem after problem after problem after problem, and for me it was a little overwhelming, especially right off the bat, because there's just so much action that I didn't really feel like I had enough time to adjust to this new world and really kind of understand the inner workings of this new magic system. So it was a lot. It's a lot to take in, but I'm so glad I stuck with it and that I pushed through because it was 100% worth it. First and foremost, he is outrunning the Night Brigade, which has been after him. He somehow ends up on this planet where the sun burns so bright that if you are ever in direct sunlight, it just incinerates you. It pretty much just burns you alive. And so you cannot be in the sun on this planet. He's also kind of running from his former self. This man, Nomad, is very haunted by his past. You get more insight into his past as you read through the book. A lot of his character becomes a little bit more clear as you read through the story. Our main character, Nomad, also has an additional problem. He calls it his torment, but he has a very particular ailment in that he cannot fight back. Even if somebody is attacking him, he cannot protect himself. He cannot defend himself physically. His body will lock up and it will freeze. So that's just an additional problem in this world of problems that he is trying to deal with. As far as the synopsis goes, I'm gonna leave it at that. That gives you enough detail to determine whether or not you're interested in the story. This is probably one of the coolest worlds, if not the coolest world in the Cosmere. Not that I want to live there, I would not survive there. As is traditional with Brandon Sanderson, it's just so unique. And of course, the magic system is very well fleshed out. Now, as I mentioned before, this book was great and I highly recommend it, but there are a couple things that prevent me from rating it 5 stars. The first one is that the pacing, even though it was action-packed, it was slow for me because there is a lot of pretty in-depth explanations as far as how the mechanics work on this world with the ships, and just some of the magic system explanations were so detailed, and honestly, I didn't really feel that invested in understanding the why. I'm very forgiving as a fantasy reader. It's a fantasy novel. I just trust that things work. If you tell me that this is the world and that this is how things operate, okay, I buy it. I'm invested. I trust it. I don't need to know the specific details. I certainly don't need to know the science behind it. So that's what caused this book to drag a little bit for me. I will be totally honest, which this is not normal for me as a Sanderson fan, but I almost felt inclined to DNF around the 70-page mark. The story was dragging. I wasn't really understanding the world. Starting a fantasy book is hard because you are adjusting to a brand new world that makes no sense initially, and you're trying to understand what are the rules, what does the magic system entail, what is the landscape like, what is this world really all about? So it's a lot. And then in this book in particular, there is a ton of action, which is awesome, but when it is just so action heavy and back to back to back, and you rarely have a minute to breathe and kind of understand this world, that was tough for me. So that was one of the reasons why I couldn't give it 5 stars, but I'm so glad I stuck with it because this book was 100% worth it. The way that Sanderson decided to end and conclude this novel was amazing, just astounding. As per usual, Sanderson, again, never disappoints. In Sanderson's writing, I gotta say, he is not a romance writer. And I think that a lot of people complain about his lack of romance in his novels, but that's just not really what his writing is all about. But the way that Brandon Sanderson writes action scenes, nobody does it better. Honestly, I have yet to find an author who can do it at least half as well as Sanderson. And I say that because there are action scenes almost in all of his books that just give me chills, which is a weird thing to say about an action scene, but the way that he writes about it gives me such a clear image, and I can just see it and I can envision it in my mind, and it's quite amazing. They're so awesome, they're so incredible, they're so out of this world that I can't help but just have a full-on physical reaction to it. It's so cool. There are 2 moments in this book that did that for me, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. To wrap up the review section of this video, I say that this is a solid 4-star read, but maybe 4.25 for just the way that Sanderson decided to end this book. I think that's pretty fair considering the fact that I was considering DNFing earlier on, and the fact that the pace just really kind of dragged for me, and the adjustment for me was tough on this book. And I don't know necessarily why. I don't know what it was that made it so difficult for me to just jump into this world, but it did. It took me some time for sure. The first, honestly, 3/4 of the book, I was sitting at a solid 3-star rating, but the last quarter of this book totally made up for it. And honestly, after I read the end, I wanted to give this a 5-star. I really did, but considering the journey that I had throughout this book, I just simply couldn't do it. So let's move towards the more spoilery section of this video. So if you would like to experience this book without any spoilers, please pause me right here, skip to another video, because I want you to be able to experience this book without any spoilers, because it deserves that, and you deserve that. So previously I mentioned 2 parts, 2 action scenes that just gave me full body chills. The first one is when Nomad, which later on, Nomad is revealed to be Sigzil. Do you remember Sig? Sigzil, I don't know how you pronounce it, but Sig, let's just call him Sig. He was part of Bridge 4, and there are so many comments and mentions to the Way of Kings. He mentions Kaladin. There's also a brief run-in with Wit. As you can expect, Wit makes an appearance in so many of the books, and I'm pretty sure he makes an appearance in all of the secret projects. I know he makes an appearance in Trust in the Emerald Sea. He definitely makes an appearance here. I'm assuming he does with the other 2, which I have yet to read, which is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and then the other one is that Wizard's Handbook for England guide, the Guide for the Wizard's Handbook. That one. So number 1, the reveal was awesome. I love the reveal, and I was trying to guess. We know who this character is, we just didn't know who exactly. And I was trying to piece together using the information that I had at the time, and I couldn't figure it out. It had to take me until the reveal, and I go, oh, Sig, it's Sig, that's so cool. So other than the reveal, there were 2 moments that just gave me full body chills. The first one is when Sig ends up saving a character named Jeffrey, which is a hilarious name, by the way. He makes Ox into a shield that goes underneath his feet, but above a bomb that's been placed, and they just get rocketed into the sky, and it's just so cool. It's so incredible. It's just such an amazing scene. And again, I had this very vivid image in my mind, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. The other part is when Sig gets his armor back and he just flies to the people on Beacon and just saves the day. There's so many awe-inspiring moments in this book, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful and it's fun. But again, a little bit overwhelming because problem after problem after problem. It's like, can this dude catch a break? Oh my gosh, seriously. The other thing that kind of threw me for a loop, this is probably my final complaint on this book, which it's a very mild complaint. It's really not that big of a deal, but there is a character, Rebecca, who I actually really like. I really enjoyed Rebecca's character, but it seemed kind of out of left field that she suddenly seems like she has a desire to be with Sig romantically, and I just totally missed it. I didn't see the signs pointing towards that, and Sig ends up rejecting her, which rightfully so. The timing isn't right, the age gap isn't right, there's just too many things that aren't right, and Sig just flat out is not interested at all, which is okay. But I don't know, the fact that Rebecca was so drawn to him romantically, that really surprised me. And not that it bothered me necessarily, but I didn't really love it because this is not a romance book. Well, clearly, I mean, she got rejected anyways, but still, I thought that her kind of broaching that subject with him just kind of threw me for a loop, and I was like, what? Ooh, she wants to be, okay. Anyways, is this book worth it? Yes. However, when it comes to the other secret project that I read, Trust in the Emerald Sea, I like that one a lot better because I didn't have any complaints about it. I thought it was so cute, it was so unique. I honestly just loved it, and I loved it from beginning to end. And this one, the love took a while to develop. I developed the obsession that I was expecting, but it took me some time. With Tress, right off the bat, I was invested. Right off the bat, I was really into it, and I really couldn't wait to just dive into the story. With this one, I really forced myself and I had to make myself, but my efforts paid off because it was 100% worth it in the end. I recommend it. I'd say solid 4-star rating for me, but I really wanted to give it like a 4.25 just because the way it ended was incredible. So talk to me. Have you read this book? What did you think? What is your favorite secret project? We have 4, and hopefully you've read them all. Hopefully you're better than me because I've only read 2 of the 4. Tell me your thoughts on this book. Tell me your favorite secret project. What's your favorite Brandon Sanderson book? Honestly, I have several, but Warbreaker will always be my first love. That was my first Brandon Sanderson book that I ever read, and I just fell in love. Words of Radiance is my top favorite book of all time. Nothing can compete with Words of Radiance. If you found this video helpful, feel free to subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date on bookish content, and we'll catch you on the flip side.